Breaking news here on Blue White Illustrated. Once again, I'm Thomas Frank Carr. There is more news for Penn State football fans because another player has made a decision. Ryan Snyder here to give you the information. Ryan, what happened this evening for the Nittany Lions?
Yeah, Conrad Hussey is a Florida State Seminole, which kind of, I don't want to say what we expected. I mean, it was expected yesterday. It got drawn out a little bit more, but a lot of people want him to go to Florida State, man. I don't pretend that I know Conrad too well. I've only interviewed him maybe a couple times, and really most of those are really just a bunch of text messages. So Conrad's not one of those guys that opens up a whole lot. Just from talking to people with Penn State related, I mean, they thought that a lot of people were in his ear, and whether NIL was a factor or not, I can't say I really know for sure. I think if NIL was the sole reason, he'd probably end up at Miami, just from what we know there. But this is how the game is. You don't know what school has saved, what money saved for certain players. The one thing I would say is it's been pretty well documented that Conrad grew up a Florida State fan, so it is what it is. But Penn State loses an important prospect, man. He was, I think, one of their top 6-7 guys, something like that, and I know a player. This is someone Terry Smith really wanted to work with.
So take us through the timeline of how all of this came about, because for quite a while he was a Nittany Lion and there wasn't a whole lot going on there. But I know that there were some events in December where he started going other places. So what happened in the last month or so?
Yeah, I mean, well, the last month it was really just he went to Miami for an official visit, went to Florida State for an official visit. Miami was the first, I believe it was a couple of weeks back. I'm sorry. Florida State was the first. It was 2 weeks ago. Miami was the most recent one. But he's been all over. I mean, he's taken a lot of visits. Went to Miami, I know, in June. I think he went to Pitt. I think that was like a couple days after he visited Penn State. Went to Colorado. One of his teammates is committed to Colorado. West Virginia got him on campus at one point as well. But this was someone who Penn State thought would fit them pretty well. That's one thing I consistently heard is that they thought he fit their culture well, and King Mack, his teammate, of course, they've raved about him from that perspective as well. But yeah, not going to get Conrad. I don't have a whole lot more to say than that. I mean, Conrad's just not a guy I know. He's just not a guy I know. There's a lot of guys I can come on here and talk about all day, just knowing their families and all that. But same with King Mack, really. I mean, I wish I could tell you more about their backgrounds and things like that, but just guys, you get a handful of those guys every class that don't really open up, and Conrad was one of them.
I think that's part of the story, though, here is that's been, part of the enigma is that nobody really knows. Nobody is very close to get that information and to have a good feel about this, which is why we all went in Thursday night really wondering. And it felt like from everyone we talked to and your sources and me listening to your sources that nobody had an idea. And that's kind of how all of this one played out, because a guy is so quiet in the recruiting trail. The interesting thing is he does fit Penn State's defense very well. 6'1", 185, good cover corner, can play both free safety. Between the two of them, he was the free safety in the St. Thomas Aquinas defense, even though he's the bigger player between he and King Mack. But you can see slot coverage versatility, got much better at tackling as a football player his senior season, didn't play with a lot of physicality. One of the things I wanted to see him improve from his junior film. And it's interesting because that was the play, and I think that's why King Mack is a higher rated player and is a guy that is incredibly important to Penn State's class. And I think the versatility he brings to the table is exceptional. But bigger frame, great tools. I see why teams were fighting over Conrad Hussey here down the stretch. What is with Penn State's defensive backs class? I know we talked about this in a couple of different ways, but Lamont Payne, how much does he make up for that, given that Penn State has a guy that you project to safety with his skills, and they already have Mack and Dakari Nelson? So can they withstand this, even though he was one of their top players and a guy they identified, as you called it, one of their top 6 players?
Yeah, I mean, one of their top 6 overall. No, I mean, Conrad, is I think would have been one of their best defensive backs in this class. So from that perspective, it really hurts. Can Lamont Payne make that up? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think Lamont will start out as a safety. I mean, I think Conrad was going to play corner, honestly. I don't think he was really going to come here and play safety. I think he was going to be more of a corner. That was never really talked about a whole lot. I mean, that was one of the things we wanted to talk to James about, but didn't really get the opportunity to ask about it. So Penn State has a deep cornerback room. They'll be fine. Terry Smith's one of the best recruiters on this team. They'll get other guys, but when you have somebody committed for 7 months and you get that close, I mean, even because it wasn't even just like the last couple of weeks. I mean, it was a roller coaster just in the last 24 hours, and there was a point today where Penn State thought that they had people close to him in their corner. I know a few people brought that up, but at the end of the day, a lot of people wanted him to stay in Florida. If they really wanted him close to home, we probably would end up in Miami, but he ends up a Seminole. And I keep coming back to this, but I mean, he did grow up a Florida State fan. So if there's one thing that I guess fans should respect is that, right? I mean, if you say your kid grew up a Nittany Lion fan, he's committed to whatever school, and that school, Penn State comes calling late in the process, and he thinks about it really hard. I would hope the fans would respect from that perspective. But the way it all happened is certainly not something that Penn State will be happy about at the end of the day. I'd really love to learn just how much NIL played a role in it. I don't know, but because Conrad was never seemed like a NIL heavy kid, and there's a lot of South Florida kids who are incredibly NIL heavy. But hey, it hurts. But hey, there's one other thing I'll say is they got King Mack. And they do have a real footing in St. Thomas Aquinas now. That's another thing I love to know. I'd love to know how much his coaches played a role into this compared to family, friends, and all that. Because his coaches seem to really, really like Penn State. And Chance Robinson's a 2024 wide receiver that I think Penn State's going to have a real opportunity with. And then, of course, Jordan Lyle, 2024 running back, who has already visited Penn State twice. Chance was up here once earlier this year. So they still have a good footing in St. Thomas Aquinas. I think that they'll continue to be a player there. And it doesn't hurt that you have King Mack obviously set to be here sooner than later.
Yeah, it was interesting following along with all of this and, following King Mack on Twitter. Just the smallest keyhole into that. But I think you're correct about St. Thomas Aquinas and talking about the kind of players and the kind of priorities and the kind of ethics. I don't know if that's too far to go, but that vibe you get from these players, the thing that I've heard from you and from especially from Fitz is he's a good kid. He was not doing this for attention. This was a lot of indecision, but he finally made his decision and flipped to Florida State. So that connection to St. Thomas Aquinas went 14-0 in the Florida State playoffs. They're an undefeated state champion, and big school down in Florida, and that's an important place to get in, as you pointed out. So last thing to wrap up here is let's just take a look at the team rankings. No one's surprised to see Alabama and Georgia at the top. Miami, as you mentioned, they lose out on Conrad Hussey, but they're doing okay, it seems. Number 3 in the nation with 3 5-star recruits. Penn State sitting at 14th. I believe these are updated. Penn State had 15 5-stars. So they're 14th in the nation. Doesn't change their spot as of yet. Anything, as we do, project going forward, there's a couple spots left in this class. Transfer portal is going to be a big situation, but is this the final ranking, in your opinion, for Penn State?
Probably not. Texas A&M has 18 commits. I don't know how many spots they have. Actually, they probably have a ton of spots. Have you seen Texas A&M's transfer portal? So, yeah, they can absolutely add more. And if you look at the numbers there, 91,409 for Penn State, 91,357 for A&M. All A&M has to do is pretty much get a quality 4-star player, and they'll jump Penn State. So, I could see that coming. Don't know a ton about Auburn's efforts right now, but with them at 89, 697, they would have to probably get a couple guys there. And with the way the on-3 consensus works is it's on a rolling number. So right now they're averaging out the top 20 or so commits. That'll jump to 21, 22 at some point, and things will shuffle with that. If Penn State's 21st, 22nd guys are rated some higher than some other guys. It might give them a little bit of a boost. But I think Penn State should finish top 15. When I just look down a little bit further, Florida State's at 17 commits. Maybe if they go on a run in January, they could potentially bump Penn State out of the top 15 there. South Carolina, TCU, I don't think they're going to make much of an impact. Michigan, I'd be surprised if they are able to bump Penn State. But I do think there's a good chance A&M's able to jump them at some point.
One last question. What's the difference between being in the top 10 at 10 and being in the top 15? Because we talk about stacking classes, and this class versus last year, which was a top 5 class, this being 14th and possibly slipping lower. Is that a concern? Is that the sort of stacking of talent that Penn State needs to create the momentum to be where they want to go, where they want to go?
It's just numbers, man. It's just numbers. They got a good class. It's all fans' perceptions. If fans want to think it's a big deal, then maybe it is. To me, it's just all numbers. You got to develop these guys. They got 14 four-star players, okay? The Mid-Atlantic region is what the Mid-Atlantic region is. It's not Georgia. It's not Alabama. It's not Florida. It's not Texas. There's good quality talent there, but there's not that top 150 talent. This is something we talked about, I think, on the live show, and I think I put in my takeaways and things like that. They got about 30%, 40% of the quality guys in their region. And if Penn State consistently does that, Penn State will always have good depth, good numbers. They should consistently put them in that 9-3, 10-2 range. The issue, as it always has been, is you got Michigan now rolling, and Ohio State's going to always be able to recruit nationally, and you have to find a way to keep doing that. And when you lose guys from South Florida that you really want, it hurts. So, but 14, 15, 16, whatever. It's all numbers to me. And I know this is my job, and I should probably take it seriously, but that's just how I think sometimes we overthink that stuff.
It's the accumulation of talent. It's just the question of 10 spots. That's really what I was curious about. What's the difference in 10 spots? Is there a cliff? Is there not a cliff? And that's
top
really
5. Sorry to cut you off. Top 5 to top 15. Yeah, there is a difference there, because if you're getting top 5, you're getting 2 or 3 5-stars, and you're getting probably 11, 12 4-star players. That's what Penn State finished 7th last year, but that was really kind of what we saw last year. So there is a difference in 10 spots, and if you said that and I misunderstood, I apologize. The difference between 11 to 16, I don't see a massive difference there. That they're all good quality guys. They're not those elite upper echelon guys. And there's a reason the top 10 is what it is. It's a bunch of the absolute powerhouses, with Miami, who is now maybe the powerhouse of NIL at the moment.
Yeah.
And hey, whether that stacks up long term, we'll see. Because there's
A&M was there a couple years ago, and they are now not there.
Last year,
so.
Right there.
Yep.
Yeah, last year. So you can't build a team with money. We saw that. Michigan State's in that ballpark as well. And what are they at now? Down 21st. So we'll see how it plays out. But Penn State fans should be happy with this class. They're going to try and add 1 or 2 more guys. Whoever they add, I don't really see too many 4-stars coming into the fold. The top guys are pretty much settled now. They gotta hit it well in the portal.
Yep. All right, that'll do it for today. Conrad Hussey, officially a Florida State Seminole. Penn State loses out in the not even 11th hour. It was the 16th hour because it went into overtime. That'll do it. Subscribe to Blue Eyed Illustrated on YouTube and hit the notification button so you don't miss any breaking news from Penn State football and Penn State football recruiting.